If Freud is right, he said that death and by extension bereavement is the great taboo. I tested this with a colleague at lunch. I said, what do you think? Can I broach a topic which is so surrounded by social prohibitions? And she said, well, no, don't do that. That's far too morbid. So you can see what I'm up against. Um, and does this cultural silence serve us well? I'm not so sure. When we lost our teenage son to a brain tumor 4 years ago, I realized just how ill-equipped and ignorant I was about how to grieve. In past cultures, religions, traditions offered kind of shared customs to help ease this bereavement process. It's something that's done together. But instead, today, we look the other way. And today, you will know, if I hope you haven't, but if you have had you experienced the sheer solitariness of being in a room with a grief counsellor, so not collective, but individual, you will know their training. It's all whatever you choose to do is right. Everyone's got a different, grief journey, etc., etc. And although this freedom of action is, on the surface, quite attractive, behind it lies an absolute absence of content. It's a bit like being helicoptered into the middle of a desert, and the pilot says, don't worry, you won't need a map, because I think you'll find that whatever direction you choose to walk in will be the right one. As I was walking through our West London park, trying to find the words for this talk, my eye fell upon a line of newly planted memorial trees. The Celebration Tree Initiative in Ealing has been 2 years old, and it's fantastically popular. Just as you may remember, if you're in England, the Sycamore Gap Initiative, where members of the public were invited to apply for saplings, cuttings from the great tree, in order to plant a tree in memory of someone. And so in my local area, these plaques are sprouting up in the last couple of years, and they're rather lovely. You get the usual kind of love notes, as you would expect, and then you get something sort of slightly more serious, like out of this small acorn grew a great oak tree. Quite nice. This one's deliberately anonymous. To quiet service, improving lives without recognition, with all my love, your wife. That's quite sweet, So it's kind of an epigraph that's sort of directed at the passing stranger with a kind of edifying message. It's this kind of dialogue going on. In fact, my favourite is, he hated this park and everyone in it. So, laughing at death. And so Ealing's parks are being turned into kind of gardens of remembrance. And many of you may have noticed this, as there's this interesting sort of encounter between the intensely private in this openly public space. And so consequently, the question is why? Why are we turning our parks literally into necropolises? Well, there's a very simple reason for that, which is we now cremate and we don't bury since 1880, when the law changed. 80% of us will elect to be cremated, and that, of course, creates a problem of what do we do with the ashes. And one thing you can do is you can plant a tree with a plaque. And any of you who tuned into the BBC radio series Doing Death Differently will know that we're becoming far more celebratory and inventive about the ways in which we wish to be commemorated. Take the wonderful, I must get his name right, Jim Couty from Liverpool, who's creating a people's pyramid. Now, this movable structure is fashioned out of the bricks made from the remains of donors' urns. And Jimmy says that the people's sculpture will represent 35,000 souls when it's finished in years. So are we in? I mean, it's not for everyone, but commemorative decisions do need to be made. And too often, They are not made. Did you know, for example, that that this country's funeral directors hold on to the remains of tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people? The reason? They are unable under law to dispose of unclaimed ashes. Or should we treat this as a kind of storage problem? I mean, the A4's got lots of self-storage down the corridor. Or is this rather a cultural forgetfulness problem? A forgetfulness problem. There may be another reason why we elect to cremate and not bury, and that is expense. A grave plot in this country now costs £10,000, and that's prohibitive. We would have found it impossible to honour our son's wish to be laid to rest in East Sheen, near our home, but for the existence of the Children's Funeral Fund, set up by a fantastically humane Act of Parliament in 2019, Carolyn Harris MP for Swansea East, which covers the costs for all under 18s. So we were fortunate. But what about everyone else? And this is where I come to my proposal. We do have beautiful and extensive municipal cemeteries in our population census, but they're almost full, and sometimes they are full, which means that plots can't be found, prices rise, and neighborhoods are not served. Now, this is bad for religious minorities, Muslims, Rastafarians, Orthodox Jews. For them, burial is mandatory, no space near your home. But actually, for everyone, for people of no stated religion, we do know that the 2021 YouGov poll indicated, and forgive me, young people are as likely or almost as likely to elect for themselves a burial site than they are for cremation. But where? Well, in this country, the Law Commission has come up with a proposal this year, which I think Parliament has to debate. And it wants to follow the example of London's wonderful municipal cemeteries. I'm thinking of Highgate or Brompton, for example, which by special acts of Parliament, the authorities are allowed to resell, and that is to reuse current plots. This frees up space, hopefully brings down prices, but also gives families, local families, the ability to bury the beloved in a space near them. Now, of course, it comes with three important safeguards. It applies to civilian graves and not military. The graves must be 100 or more years old, and they cannot have received objections from families given due, that's to say 6 months notice. Now, I think for all of us, these beautiful, wonderful, underused spaces will have new life given to them, because they are exactly that. They are gems of architecture, many of them. They hold our material culture of the past. They should hold our material culture of the future. They were designed for our spiritual regeneration and individual contemplation, as places where you go to relax. And they are, of course, places where the beloved both is and is not. If the example of West London's parks tells us anything, that we humans have the urge to triangulate private loss with our living community. Feuerbach once wrote that life would be incomplete without death, because it provides the ultimate verification of love. Our cemeteries prove that, and we should revive them, not let them decay, because that really would be morbid. Thank you for listening.